Hi, I'm Julie Negron. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a registered dietitian for over 30 years now. And my specialty is dealing with gastrointestinal diseases. I myself have celiac disease and mild IBS symptoms as well that accompany that. So I can relate on a personal level. I can relate on a professional level, and I love to see progress and help people with similar problems that I have, and offering professional advice as well as some tips and tricks that work for me personally in my own struggles with celiac disease and irritable bowel syndrome. So I'm really excited to be here and help and answer questions that you have, and just be here for you as a resource through Casa de Sante. And on their Facebook Live page, you may see my name in answering questions that you have on the Facebook page in the support group, as well as in the SIBO support group, and possibly others as well. So feel free to send your questions in, and I will do my best to answer your questions as fully as I can. And if more needs to be done than that, I will go ahead and just make recommendations for more professional help. So I thank you for being here today, and I'm happy to be here as well. Let's see. So we have our first question. Okay, this is a really good question. Can you explain the connection between our diet and IBS symptoms? Sure. The connection between diet and IBS is that people with irritable bowel syndrome have a sensitive intestinal tract, and really there are a lot of factors that can cause irritable bowel syndrome. That our diet doesn't necessarily cause irritable bowel symptoms or the syndrome itself, but stress has a big role in irritable bowel syndrome. But managing the symptoms, yes, we definitely, diet plays a huge role in managing the symptoms and the triggers. So what has been really the type of diet that's successful with most people with irritable bowel syndrome, and I'm saying most because it's not 100%, but is the low FODMAP diet. FODMAP, these are types of carbohydrates that have a certain chemical reaction in our system that can make these types of carbohydrates very hard to tolerate and cause symptoms. So foods that are low FODMAP, specifically containing short chain carbohydrates, trigger these symptoms. And some people with IBS may be able to tolerate some of them, and some may not. Everyone's different. So I just wanted to mention that. These short chain carbohydrates are found naturally in foods like wheat and certain various fruits and vegetables, in dairy, gluten, and what happens is they are poorly absorbed in the intestine, and what happens then is that extra water is drawn into the intestine and then fermented in the gut. That fermentation causes gas, and then there can be either constipation or diarrhea, depending, and then there may be back and forth constipation and diarrhea. So the low FODMAP foods, and on casadesante.com, there's a ton of information about what these foods are, and as well as recipes and ideas of how to incorporate low FODMAP foods and avoid high FODMAP foods. And also they are really, it's the quantity and the quantity of some of the high FODMAP foods that you may notice that one day you can tolerate a small amount. But if you have that tomorrow again, then you may notice that you have some symptoms. So there's a cumulative effect, and there's certain quantities that everyone has different tolerance levels. So it just depends on your own personal tolerance level to various foods and when they show symptoms such as abdominal pain, bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation. So so the connection between diet and IBS symptoms is very strong. And usually it's due to the short chain carbohydrates that are in certain foods that trigger these symptoms. And like I said before, I can't stress enough that everyone's different. Where one person can tolerate a little bit of cheese, for example, maybe another person cannot tolerate any. So everyone's a little bit different, and I want to emphasize that you know, on our Facebook page too, when we're talking about and answering questions for each other as well, commenting about foods and things like that. It's very helpful to know, but always keep in mind that everyone's, you know, you may be different. What foods work for one person may not be for the other. That's why we have, at Casa de Sante, we have caregivers like myself, healthcare providers, registered dietitians like myself, and GI clinicians and health coaches that can meet one-on-one to address your own personal meal plans and dietary needs. All right. Let's see. We have another question, number 2, please. Okay. Are there any weight gain drinks or protocols you can recommend for people with SIBO? Thank you for this question, Judy. I think, so it sounds like you need to gain weight, and yes, definitely. I don't know about weight gain drinks that would fit for you. I would really, what I would suggest is that we meet one-on-one and we talk about what's been going on with you. And along with SIBO, do you have any other diagnoses, medical issues, like diabetes, high blood pressure, anything else? Because we need to take into account every everything that's going on with you in order to answer your question. I wouldn't want to suggest a weight gain drink or protocol that wouldn't fit you personally. So in general, I can answer that there are ways to gain weight with SIBO, but I would want to address that on a more personal note to make sure that I'm recommending the correct thing for you. This is my cat Lucy. She likes to join me on these calls sometimes and help out as well. She's kind of like my little secretary here. So I hope you don't mind. So Judy, I would, you can go on Casa de Sante and sign up to meet with me or another healthcare professional that's an expert in gastrointestinal disease. Or if you have in your healthcare provider and your healthcare system with your insurance, if you have a registered dietitian through your doctor, that would be what I would suggest. Thank you for your question. Okay, let's see. And we have another question. Let's see. How can I ensure that I'm meeting my nutritional needs while following a restrictive diet for my IBS? Definitely, that's a good question. And a lot of times when we first find out that irritable bowel syndrome is the diagnosis, there's an elimination diet, eliminating high FODMAP foods. And then, so there's a restrictive period of eliminating high FODMAP foods, and then possibly reintroducing those foods after a period of time of having them eliminated from the diet. The low FODMAP diet in general can really meet all of our nutritional needs as long as it's well balanced. You're not restricting a whole food group. And the other thing is when we have irritable bowel syndrome or any other gut diagnoses that causes a lot of pain and discomfort and affects the quality of our life, it's very tempting to go to extreme measures, like going to eating mostly meat, for example, high protein foods and meats, and doing that, going to that extreme, like a carnivore paleo diet, and restricting all carbs and all fruits and vegetables. Of course, that will not meet anyone's nutritional needs for the long term. So short term, there would be restrictions on the diet with some reintroduction of foods so that the restrictions don't last for too long, hopefully, but it depends. Everyone's different, and they may have overlapping diagnoses that require restrictions to go on for quite some time and maybe long term. I would, in this case, recommend a dietitian to work with you to make sure that all of your nutritional needs are being met, especially if there are concurrent diagnoses that affect digestion and food intake. So the low FODMAP diet is medically directed, it's nuanced, it is complex, and it is meant to be undertaken under the care of a professional. And gastrointestinal doctors a lot of times will refer to registered dietitians to really do a deep dive into helping out, making sure that nutritional needs are being met for their patients, that we're checking for any food and medication interactions, and just really making sure that we check everything about the medical history and address that in the nutritional recommendations, so that say you have high blood pressure as well, on medication for that. Well, we may need to, in addition to going on the low FODMAP diet for a while, we may need to restrict some sodium intake. This way we can set you up with healthy eating strategies to manage your symptoms for the long term, and make sure that you're not being too restrictive. Want to make sure that that any long-term diet that you're following, not a diet per se as far as like restrictive, but I mean your eating patterns that are not too extreme, that are reasonable and can be incorporated into your lifestyle. I hope that answers that question well. If you have any more to add to that, please feel free to type in any additional questions. Let's see, let's go to the third question. Are there any new or emerging treatments for IBS that you could recommend, that I would recommend? Well, it seems like the science of nutrition is always changing and evolving, and it's a very fast-moving type of science. That's why registered dietitians, we have to keep our registration status, we have to get 75 continuing education units every 5 years, kind of like doctors, nurses, and other healthcare providers. Because of all the changes that happen, we have to stay on top of them. Especially with IBS in the past 5-10 years, there's been a lot of different new and emerging treatments. There's some that have been more constant. If you just go on and Google, you'll be overwhelmed by all the different treatments, and what treatments are really medically credible and recommended versus what is really not. So we need to be careful in deciphering between what is credible and what is not. We as registered dietitians, and those of us who are healthcare providers, we go by the science and the credibility. So yeah, there are constantly new products. There are probiotics and digestive enzymes that are that are useful. Even some herbal remedies. However, heed recommendations though. I went onto a website. It wasn't 100% credible, I believe, but it did say at the very, very bottom in small letters, results for individuals may vary depending on existing health factors, lifestyle, and level of fitness. The information contained on this site is intended to educate only and is no way a substitute for medical advice that your doctor or healthcare provider can offer, with whom you should always consult before making any dietary changes. And I thought, well, I like, that's the part of this website that I like. To really cut through the minutia of information, and before trying any new treatments, I would consult with your doctor, with healthcare providers. Casa de Sante We have healthcare providers that are experts in gastrointestinal diseases and that you can always consult with. Before we go on to the next question, the podcast will be flashed, and please follow our podcast. This podcast about gut matters and the science behind gastrointestinal health. You can listen on Spotify. You can send messages in, and so it's going to be very informative, talking about the latest research on not only IBS, but Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and break it down in a way that is easy to understand and may answer some questions that you've had. All right. So now we'll go on to the fourth question. And that is, how can I develop a sustainable and long-term approach to managing my IBS symptoms through diet and lifestyle changes? So I love this question because this is what I focus on with any kind of diet and lifestyle changes that my patients, my clients need to make. They really need to, instead of being extreme and super restrictive and cutting out one or two food groups like all carbs or all meat or something like that, that's not sustainable. And really, dietitians are not, we don't like the word diet in a way because it's a four-letter word that in society means restrictive. And in weight loss, of course, that's a very popular term, but in terms of medical issues and things like that, even with some of the restrictions that might be necessary to have as much variability in the diet so that it's satisfying, but really developing a diet and lifestyle changes that work for you individually, meeting with an expert like myself is the best way to manage this and make sure to understand what causes you discomfort and work to eliminate and minimize. Medication, stress management, medication management, and any food drug interactions, stress management, probiotics may help. Eating habits need to be the biggest focus, well, a big focus. And then simple changes, as breaking it down into making it as simple as possible so that changes can be long-term and sustainable to reduce future flare-ups. That's the main goal of meeting with a healthcare provider one-on-one, and really seeing what are your food likes, what are your dislikes, what foods are causing your symptoms, and what foods are not. Sometimes it can be hard to track which foods are causing what problem because of delayed reactions, the cumulative effect. It can be very complex and tricky. So having someone to help along with sorting it all out is really the way to develop sustainable and long-term approach for individuals. And again, as I mentioned before, I'm available here to make an appointment and come up with a long-term strategies for you that you can live with and be comfortable with and satisfied with what you're eating. So thank you for that question. Let's see, let's go on to the next question. All right, number 5. Can you recommend any mindfulness techniques or stress management strategies that may alleviate my IBS symptoms? I love this question because it really validates the fact that, yes, stress can really worsen the irritable bowel symptoms. So mindfulness techniques are very, very important. First of all, I would say I can't stress enough journaling about stress in your life, journaling about feelings, possibly seeking therapy to if there's overwhelming, or even not necessarily overwhelming, but to discuss stress management and get help with that if needed. But journaling yourself, finding a nice journal and writing down your feelings, creating balance in your life. Take a look at your lifestyle. Is it too hectic and chaotic? Do you keep yourself too busy? Is there not enough balance? Balance in our lifestyles is majorly important, and we need to manage our schedules. We need to learn how to say no. I used to be a yes person and a recovering people pleaser, so I know how it is to say yes to everything and be spread too thin. It really can be toxic to ourselves to do that. And our body can give in, and the stress, the high cortisol level, cortisol is a hormone that is released from stress, and in high amounts, it can cause weight gain, cravings for sweet and fatty foods, and several other debilitating effects, causing disease. And our gut has a lot of nerves, and that's why stress directly affects our bowel. So journaling, and then as you notice certain foods that you cannot tolerate, journal those. Journal your diet, your food intake on a daily basis, all of your meals and your snacks and what you're drinking. And alongside that, draw a line in the middle of the page and write down what you're eating, everything. And then the symptoms on the other side of the journal. And this will keep you mindful about what you're eating, what your symptoms are, to help really weed out which foods are causing what. And I really can't stress enough that I can't say enough that having someone look at the food symptom journal to number one, make sure that you're meeting your nutritional needs, but also to weed out what food is causing what symptom, because of the delayed effect of foods. It may not be that the food you have here is causing this symptom right here. It may be that this food is causing a symptom way down the line, like a day later. So it can be kind of difficult on your own to weed out things like that. So yoga, meditation, meeting your basic needs and putting your needs first, such as basic needs being food intake and eating healthy, not skipping meals, not going without eating, or not eating fast foods and things like that, but really making sure you're eating well. Make sure that you're sleeping well. Make sure that you have some exercise, some movement that is realistic for yourself. Taking care of your basic needs, which are those. Our bodies are meant to be active, so we do need some exercise and activity that works around any kind of injuries or disabilities or things that may get in the way of that. But that's something that I help my clients with as well, figuring out some activities. Those all are really what I would recommend to manage stress, getting the balance you need, meeting all of your basic needs of having routines for sleep, eating on a routine basis where you're not skipping meals and forgetting to eat, having exercise routines. Our bodies love routine, and our bodies want to heal. And so if we're mindful about our own needs and meeting our own needs, it's not selfish. It's actually putting ourselves first and our health first is actually you're giving the people around you and your family and friends and anyone who may depend on you a gift, because you're taking good care of yourself. So mindfulness techniques, there are many, yoga, meditation, but getting the routine, getting your routine basic needs and being very self-aware of, am I tired, and taking breaks, getting the balance that you need. Basically, that's the key in my mind. That's a great question. Thank you. So the next question, let's see. How can I address the social and emotional impact of living with irritable bowel syndrome, particularly with regards to food-related events and situations? Oh, that's great. Yeah. Food is, and eating is really a social event in just about every culture. In most families, most every family will have events like holidays, birthdays, parties for ceremonies and different things like that, they're all kind of around. Food is always a part of that. So addressing social and emotional impact of any kind of dietary restrictions can be a challenge. First of all, knowing what foods you can and can't tolerate by being self-aware and keeping track is number one. Then absolutely, I would. It's tempting sometimes, and for some people, not all, to isolate and not go out and say no to those things. But being social is important. So I would, keeping balance, not saying yes to everything, but saying yes to some, because being social and around people is really important. And it is important to stay cognizant of our dietary restrictions, what we can't tolerate. And for what I do personally is when I'm invited to someone's house for dinner or to a party or celebration like that, a lot of times it is everybody's bringing food. It's like a potluck. So I bring foods that I know I can tolerate, that are gluten-free, that are low FODMAP. So I always bring plenty of my own food to these events. I usually try to find out more about the menu. If somebody's ordering food to be delivered, I ask about the restaurant and call and check on the food that's been ordered to make sure, is it gluten-free? Are the ingredients gluten-free? The sauce is gluten-free? Are there onions in it? Is there garlic in it? How is it made? Is it fried or is it baked? Looking for cross-contamination. For example, are the French fries in the same fryer as the breaded products? Because that can cause, for me, that can cause a lot of problems, the cross-contamination. So I like to check ahead about the menu, what food is there, and investigate on my own, is it safe? I bring my own food a lot of times. Say you're going out to eat and you want to check on, I would check on the menu ahead of time and call in advance and make sure that the restaurant is cognizant of food allergies and problems with certain food like gluten and other foods, and that they're careful, because not every restaurant is careful. Most aren't, from what I find. Personally, I use an app called what is it called? My Gluten-Free. My cat is on my notes. My gluten-free, find me gluten-free. That's it, on my phone, and that helps me out. There are apps out there too that can help with low FODMAP as well. So that's something that you could definitely look into. When I go out to Asian food, for example, I can't have soy sauce because a lot of the soy sauces have a wheat component. And so I bring my own tamari sauce. They come in packages. I get them at kind of food specialty stores and put them in my purse so that I have my own sauce and I can order the food without certain ingredients. I'm always questioning the waiter or waitress, to ask the chef, and to just, it takes being proactive when you go out to eat. That's a really tricky part of having dietary restrictions, is going out to eat. But viewing the menu ahead of time, planning ahead, maybe bringing something that you can eat if they don't have it, so that you can navigate sticking with the restrictions that you need to, yet enjoying yourself and just being able to relax and have fun and partake, which is very important. There is a Mexican restaurant that I go to that I bring my own chips, but the meal that I order there is gluten-free, but their chips aren't, because although they're corn, they're fried in the same fryer with their breaded products. So I bring my own. And I kind of know the restaurants in my area that I can stick to that are safe for me. And that's really key to staying social and enjoying food-related events and staying healthy and symptom-free. I hope that answers your questions there. And let's go on to question number 7. What role does the gut microbiome play in irritable bowel symptoms? How can I modify my diet to promote a healthy gut microbiome? Okay, that's a huge, huge question, hugely important. The gut microbiome plays a huge role in IBS symptoms because throughout the gut, we do have good bacteria, bad bacteria from the foods we eat. We each have our own kind of fingerprint microbiome from what our environment brings in, over the years. And so everyone's microbiome is a little bit different. And our microbiome plays a huge role. In 70% of our immune system is in our gut from the microbiome. So our immune system is hugely dependent on how healthy our microbiome is. And if, as much as we can, if we can promote healing in our gut and maintain that healing by eating foods that are just keeping the gut healthy and not causing damage to our gut. We need to stay in front of it and on top of it because of how important the microbiome is. So if we make sure that our gut microbiome is balanced, and we're always going to have some bad bacteria due to the environment that we're in, the allergens that affect us, the preservatives, or something that's in our food that may not agree with us. There's something that we eat or drink that may happen to have bad bacteria in it. Another thing is being on antibiotics for an illness can kill some of the good bacteria as well as the bad bacteria in our gut. That's why a lot of times with antibiotic therapy, we have diarrhea, because the good bacteria that keeps the balance of the microbiome healthy is killed. And so that's why, for example, like I went to the doctor for a UTI, a urinary tract infection, had antibiotics, and then got a yeast infection on top of that. Well, the doctor said to eat yogurt. So the probiotics in the yogurt helped to replenish some of the good bacteria, the Lactobacillus acidophilus, for example. But being on antibiotics can cause an imbalance in our microbiome because of the killing the good bacteria. High stress, that pesky cortisol hormone can really cause damage in our gut and to our microbiome. So high stress, that goes back to being mindful and balanced in your life. You could see how all of this is interrelated. Really, the mind-body connection is strong. They're interrelated. A lot of times, holistically, if in my practice, I'm very holistic. I try to look at what's going on from not just the nutritional aspect, but sleep and stress, and as well as dietary intake and nutrition. A poor diet, a diet with a lot of fast food, with a lot of fast food has a lot of saturated and trans fatty acids that can affect our gut and the microbiome. Because if we are eating, ingesting foods, drinks, things like that, that can really harm our digestive tract. It's like there's sores on the inside of our digestive tract. And we have these microvilli inside that, and all these enzymes that are on the microvilli that help with digesting. Well, if those are damaged, we have less enzymes to digest, help us digest our food. We have less good bacteria. And so no wonder we're having problems. The amount of sugar in sugar is very inflammatory, and can cause problems in our gut, inflammation, as well as saturated fat, like I just said. And those can all affect the microbiome because we have inflammation. Inflammation is caused by something, and then as a result of the inflammation and the damage to the tissue, there's also damage to the bacteria. Of course, it's all interrelated. They're all together there, and it affects everything and throws off the balance in our gut. So how can we modify the diet while sticking with the foods that we can tolerate as much as possible to allow healing, taking certain probiotics, digestive enzymes, because if, like I said, the enzymes are damaged in the brush border of our gut, and we have a lot less enzymes because of the damage, taking digestive enzymes can help as well. And then eating fermented foods of certain types that are low FODMAP, such as, if you can tolerate dairy, some Greek yogurts or kefir, and whole foods that are low FODMAP, as well as organic, keeping our diet as clean as possible and sticking with organic foods as much as possible. And I have a list that I go by as far as that goes. Some foods really do need to be organic. Some foods can be conventional, depending on what it is. And I have a list of foods that need to be and foods that don't need to be. But all of those things, there are just so many things in our environment, our dietary intake, medications, stress, that have a daily effect on our gut microbiome. And so the foods that we eat, making sure that we follow the right kind of eating plan, that we take probiotics if we need to, if we take digestive enzymes that we need to. There's L-glutamine as well, which is an amino acid that can help the digestive tract to heal. It's kind of like a food for the gut cells. So all of these things together, and to stay on top of the healing, they're all very important. Thank you. So let's see. The next question. Are there any potential risks or side effects associated with long-term use of dietary supplements or herbal remedies for IBS symptoms? Well, there can be, depending on what the supplement or herb is. There can be long-term side effects. For example, probiotics and digestive enzymes are really, there's very, very little risk of any side effects that are long-term use. Vitamins, some vitamins, if they are fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, K is also a fat-soluble vitamin. These vitamins, if they are given in a megadose for too long, can be associated with risky long-term side effects, because we may store extra of these vitamins. They're not water soluble, they're fat soluble, so they could be stored and become toxic. So a lot of times vitamin therapy, say someone has a B12 deficiency or iron deficiency, or vitamin D is really low. Those can be supplemented and need to be supplemented, but maybe not for the long term. As soon as someone's labs come back and their vitamin D level is fine, depending on their bone health, of course, then definitely can stop. Some supplements and remedies are meant for temporary relief and not meant to be a long-term, taken long-term. So that's important to know. Some supplements are meant to be long-term. So it really helps for you to give your healthcare provider, your doctor, your dietitian, clinicians, a list of any dietary supplements you take, any herbal remedies that you take. I would not start any unless you run them by your healthcare provider, your doctor, and it's part of an assessment where they're really looking at how you eat, what are your medical issues, and how long do you need these supplements or herbal remedies? Are there interactions between them, potentially, and with some of the food that you eat? Are there interactions between the supplements that you're taking and herbal remedies that you're taking with the medications that you're taking? So there are a lot of things to consider here, and you need to run them by a healthcare provider so that you can avoid long-term side effects. So I hope that answers your question there. If you have any other questions, specifically, I would say let's meet one-on-one. You have to be careful, especially with herbal remedies and supplements. They're not FDA approved necessarily to treat. You know, they can be out in the market and things like that, but they should be under medical care so that you're not taking them long term if not necessary. All right, thank you. That was a good question. And we're on to number 9. How can I modify my diet and lifestyle to address other health conditions and or comorbidities that may be contributing to my IBS symptoms? Well, that one definitely, depending on what your current diet and lifestyle are now and what other health conditions you have, it's best to meet with a professional, whether meet with your doctor, meet with a registered dietitian or GI clinician to help sort out dietary needs, lifestyle changes to address all of the health conditions that you may have. Because, gosh, 36 or 40% to 40% of all people with irritable bowel syndrome usually have other comorbidities or health conditions that they need to attend to. So to run this by a healthcare provider who is an expert in gastrointestinal would be ideal, but so that they can help you manage your symptoms and modify your diet and lifestyle. Great question. Now, number 10, last but not least. Can you recommend any resources or support groups for individuals living with irritable bowel syndrome? Yes, I can. I think really, really highly of Casa de Sante and their low FODMAP meal plans, recipes, their Facebook support group. I am on it and answering questions all the time. Also on the SIBO and IBS support group. We participate on those Facebook pages to answer questions as completely as possible with credible research-based information for you. And if the question requires more attention, then we can give you the resource of going on casadesante.com and take a free gut health assessment on that page. Going forward to make a one-on-one appointment to meet with a healthcare provider, purchase any low FODMAP foods or supplements like probiotics and digestive enzymes, book sessions with gastrointestinal professionals. So the Casa de Sante resource is highly recommended. There are meal plans and sample menus, and we can even come up with some that are personalized and custom made just for you as well. So there's a whole vast source of information on our website at casadesante.com. So I'd like to go ahead with that. Thank you for all your questions. This is the last question. We'll flash on the podcast, and I'd like to encourage you to go ahead and follow our podcast. And I'd like to summarize and our conversation here. Thank you for all your questions, and most of which really need the eye of a healthcare provider who can give you an assessment, come up with a plan for you that is personalized for you. So again, you can make an appointment with me on the casadesante.com, starting with your gut assessment, and then going on to meeting with me on a regular basis to help figure out what complex questions that you have and what you've been through already, the amount of knowledge that you currently have, and what you've been through, and just help you create something create an eating plan and lifestyle changes that you are satisfied with, that you can live with and be content with for long term, and that will help you heal most of all. So again, thank you for your questions, and thank you for being involved on our Facebook pages. If you haven't had a chance, please look on our Facebook pages as well, and you can get your questions answered there too. Thank you. Have a great day.